Ladies and gentlemen, I can't fucking I'm sure you've seen it already. I'm sure there's so many videos, people popping off. If everyone's in the Genshin community, you've seen it. You've seen it already. Also, I haven't shaved yet, a little scruffy, forgive me. But it's early morning right now, and I can't believe this. Fate has shined upon your boy in such a big way. Also, the memes, the meme economy is popping off real hard. With even further Zhongli buffs, the whole, if you don't like me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. It's cringe, but also kind of fucking on point. But also, a valid criticism that people have is power creep, sure, but I still think it's too early to say power creep yet, because again, a lot of people are saying like, oh my god, but like again, Venti exists, Diluc exists, like they haven't surpassed any of these other people, and I realize that, what do you call it? Again, it's that we don't want that. We don't want everyone to be a Diluc. We want them to be amazing, maybe what they do, and Zhongli was a byproduct of doing too many things and therefore having to be nerfed. But with that being said, though, I think it's also a bullshit idea too. Again, we're gonna talk about it. And I don't want. By the way, the reason why we're not in my set is because I actually want to jump in game and show you guys just why, to me, this is fucking mental for me specifically, and probably you if you have some of the builds as well. But basically, we have some more Zhongli buffs. We've heard from our community, and plenty of people gave us ideas, and we're listening, so that's dope as shit. Probably to Reddit being very loud, but still, good something. Yeah, so Zhongli in co-op is a little weak, is what they're saying. Also, in parties with geo-resident effect, the support of Zhongli is less pronounced than other available geo characters. Yes. Also, in single-player mode, Zhongli is not very compatible with parties with non-geo resident effects. So this is their thing of like Zhongli's really built on like his pillars resonating with other geo artifacts, and therefore, if you don't have him in a geo party, you're kind of not using one of the ways he can kind of double up on his damage. So how do we make it so that he can be effective in non-geo characters? Because geo is supposed to be in a support ability, and in this instance, it's quite selfish. So what did they do? Well, I'm pretty sure you already know it as well, but they fucking popped off in a big way. So, today, this is already going live in the test server. Yeah, and this is the adjustment for 1.3 in the test servers, so, you know. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to be doing that later, hopefully. They're testing this out, so again, this is all subject to change. People are popping off. This could be reduced. They could say, okay, well, we added this, but that means now it's 0.1% of his health is now being affected by damage. All that. Be patient. We'll see. But if this stays set, and they didn't say anything in this part because they've already been testing Zhongli for a while now, in the test servers, so they should be like, okay, well, we're gonna change this back. Maybe they're not doing that because they don't want to, deal with a shitstorm because people are really excited for the buffs. But yes, everything from the previous buff are still available. So essentially, when you summon forth your Dominus Lapinus, you hold it down, you'll summon a pillar, and you'll get a shield. Also, you'll deal a bunch of geo damage. That's 3 effects in 1 ability cast, and if you happen to have Constellation, you can pop a Stone Slate. Wait a couple seconds, pop your shield, and then you should be good to go. Acting on high frequency, awesome. One of those steel slates can only offer you elemental regen though, so be careful with that. It's not like you're gonna get double regen, just gonna get double damage, which is pretty worth it, especially if it scales off your health, and no one really knows how much that will scale yet, so a little bit too early to say. But all that shit aside, I'm doing the math. When a character is protected by Jade Shield, opponents with the set radius have elemental resistance and physical damage decrease. Elemental resistance and physical damage decrease. So basically, this is a debuff of elemental resistance and physical damage. You know who does one main thing, but also a little bit of elemental damage? Razor! Razor does mad physical damage, but he also, with his ult, which already increases his physical damage because it increases your attack speed, but also it increases his increases the element effect that you're applying to enemies. Not only that, but if you have a Chi-Chi, who'd say maybe Chi-Chi, who applies ice to people, and you have, and that causes superconduct, that elemental resistance can actually play with you in a big way. Maybe. We'll see. Again, not maybe. Anything that debuffs enemies is crazy. Not only that, but Razor actually decreases enemies' physical resistance with his claw if you happen to have him at pretty high constellation. So we'll get into my specifics, but let's just go over the base stuff. But yes, but this is important. When a character is protected by Jade Shield, this does not mean Zhongli. This is just the shield. So beforehand, his shield was kind of weird because there's this thing in the game called Petra, Archaic Petra. It's essentially an artifact set. Awesome. But you have to pick up a shard, and when you pick up a shard, it gives you a massive damage buff of whatever that shard is. Now, unfortunately, this kind of shit the bed, because this would be really good for Zhongli if you can just, because it said when you were protected by the shield and you pick up a shard. The picking up the shard thing fucks over Zhongli, because even though he does his charge attack, he has a Jade shield, or a Geo shield, would mean he would give you Geo bonus damage, which therefore could increase your ult damage. But no, it doesn't work that way. When you apply the shield, it's just a shield. You didn't pick up the shard, so you don't get the damage buff, so that kind of made it fucky. But with this, enemies are just getting a giant debuff, and we're gonna get into the crazy, like, just the amount of things going on in 1.3 for Geo characters and just Zhongli in general. This isn't it. It's everything compounded on this that makes it start to get nuts, at least if you think about it. And maybe, again, stuff gets finagly, we'll see. But anyways, any person who's wielding the Jade Shield will have elemental resistance decreased and physical resistance decreased, meaning if you built for any of those, which you have to build for at least one of those, you'll be hitting that much harder with our boy, the Geo King himself. I read a comment that said, someone's like, Mahoya like, oh, here, Zhongli, you dropped your crown. Now you're finally top tier. Oh shit. Well, that's it. Zhongli was already pretty good if you just built him for alt spam. Just a solid 51 damage out of nowhere, solid. But now, it's just like, no, that's even gonna be even more, guys. What the fuck? It's gonna be even more, yeah, because it scales off physical damage, I think, and Zhongli's alt scales off physical damage and Geo damage, so you're just gonna be hitting way harder with that alt. Man. So yeah, as you guys can see a comparison, I don't know which one is which, but yes, basically you're gonna be they're gonna be taking more elemental damage as well as physical damage. They're not really showing the physical damage, but it's probably the same. But absolutely lovely. Craziness. Also, they're playing co-op, as you guys can see, so they're just doing better base damage as well as, or white damage, and of course elemental damage. Everything else is going to be more or less the same. Again, this is the old effect. Zhongli's shield was once Geo base, which is terrible because it would not resist anything more. But now, after the buff to him, he'll be getting a 51 physical damage resistant shield as well as an elemental absorption shield, which is crazy. That this is like, it's hard to put into words, but basically 250 Geo, you're like, oh my god, it's a lot. It's not, because it's not resistant to anything, so it's actually like weaker. It's weird. But this one is resistant to physical damage, white damage, as well as elemental damage absorption. That means everything, basically resistant to everything. That's fucking nuts. And again, when you pop that thing, it'll do Geo damage. Awesome. So if you have a built for Geo damage, it's just gonna be solid. All right, let me find myself. Now we're in game. All right. So why this is so fucking nuts to me? And okay, let me just ramble for a hot minute. All right. So one of the things that people are considering, I don't think, or maybe they are, and that's why, like, but they're not saying it. But it's the fact that everything is gonna compound and be fucking nuts. In a really cool way. Some people could be like, oh, 20 damage. I mean, it's kind of good, but is that worth playing a character that's... It's just the fact that everything is gonna just bulldoze if everything stays the way it is, which it might not. Sorry, you couldn't hear anything. The game is muted because I was listening to podcasts. Regardless, the thing that gets crazy is that this thing, most likely this update, is going to come with 1.3 or 1.4, whatever they said it would come. But it's going to come alongside the Geo buff. So if you happen to have a Zhongli with a pillar, that's pretty good, right? This kind of has a decent radius, and then not great. But if you couple it with an Albedo, it's solid radius. And now you have this big radius as well as Albedo's huge radius of constantly applying Geo. Now Geo, every time you hit an enemy with anything, it seems, it decreases their resistance to Geo. So now they have a decrease to Geo if you have a party of 2. You have to have 2 Geo characters in your party to have that. With Spiral Abyss, it can be weird because you want more elements because of wizards and shit. But this may be enough damage to actually cut through a lot of that. But it's yet to be seen. But anyways, so now we're applying consistent Geo. Geo's damage is getting buffed. That means Zhongli's alt is getting buffed. Zhongli also has a buff where it says, based on Zhongli's HP, it actually buffs Dominus Lapidus, this thing, as well as his attack. Now, I think his attack scales with his alt. So your alt will theoretically hit harder if you have a lot more health as well, but that could be just gated. They could be like, no, it doesn't affect your alt damage. It's cut off at that point. It's a different kind of attack damage. This is going to make Zhongli and him so good, because what do you call it? Albedo already does a shit ton of elemental damage. That is the damage type he deals. Now, when you hit an enemy with anything, they are going to take more Geo damage. And if you happen to have Zhongli's shield, on them, everyone's going to take, it's not even just that we deal more damage, it's that everybody takes more damage. So that just by having the shield and by hitting them and they're resistant to Geo, now we're doubling that damage just by being around them with the shield. So theoretically, again, it's just how that stuff compounds and gets nuts. Beside the Geo decreasing their resistance even more. So not only is the shield decreasing the resistance, but the Geo, they're going to take more damage from Geo. So if you do happen to have a Nin Wong or an Albedo, a Nin Wong, a Razor, or any of them in combination, that's going to be fucking crazy. The second thing that's funny is that this patch, this like buff, is almost perfect for my specific situation. Because I think there's a video maybe coming out today. I don't know, I got 3 videos that could possibly come out today. But essentially, I have a video which I made a long time ago, which is me building Zhongli for max HP. So we had around 35,000 HP. And his ult did 10,000, nothing crazy, nothing like 50,000, which you can get if you build him for Geo cannon damage, kind of. The one thing that build also has is a crazy amount of shield. I built him for the artifact set that gives you 35 extra shield resistance, so it's just really, really resistant. And with the new buff, it's going to become even more resistant. And who knows, maybe in the next buff you'll actually see it's maybe even better to build him HP, because again, it depends on if your HP scales with your attack and if your ult scales with that attack as well. But that may just be your stabby stabs. We'll see. I'm not sure about how that will work. But anyways, so that's just good generally. Just the fact that Albedo and Zhongli, we already knew this, that they were going to be really, really good together just because of the resistance of Geo, and then you're going to be able to hit Geo even harder, and Nin Wong probably is going to be even crazier because she just is just a good Geo damage character, whereas Zhongli and Albedo kind of are just supports, right? But maybe Zhongli will change that. Anyways, but even still, this doesn't deal Geo damage, so he'll be just doing physical damage. Anyways, is this that will be affected. But I built my Zhongli, my old build, which I still have all the artifacts, so I could easily just switch to it. I built that for just insane shield density because I had no healer in my team and I had a Razor. So basically the idea was I popped my shield and then Razor just could chew through anything and never stop attacking. And that's how Razor plays. Razor just gets a stupid high attack buff, or attack speed buff, so that you need to keep, being able to attack fast. If you get stopped, then you're screwed. So this really helped with that whole situation. But we had a problem with us not having enough healing. Eventually, we needed some HP. I also got Bennett and Chi-Chi. Now, the thing is, I think I'm going to build Chi-Chi, even though I know Bennett would also work in this instance, and I may just swap their artifacts. But the buff to Zhongli decreases both physical damage, which is great, because that's what Razor does, but also, people don't really talk about this, but Razor's ult, if you build him for somewhat recharge in his ult, you're basically getting insane, like way more DPS because you're hitting so much faster. Not only that, but your little bastard, your wolf, your little badass wolf, will rip things to shred with elemental damage. So a character that deals both physical damage and elemental damage is going to pop off in a big way when he is shielded with Zhongli's shield. And not only that, but because we have Chi-Chi, or Bennett could also work in this regard, but Chi-Chi's a little bit better in my opinion for this specific idea that I have, which is this. This does not deal that much damage, but it constantly applies cryo almost every other second, which will cause super conduct, which lowers their base resistance. And also procs some good damage on top when you hit ice and electricity, makes it pop, does some damage, awesome. She's getting fucked up by the wind. But anyways, not only that, but this, if you have Constellation for Razor, will actually decrease the enemy's defense. So it's just, at least in my opinion, this update set a lot of my situations free. Like a lot of my characters that I'm building, they're like, we get affected by that in a big way. And I think a lot of people are like that. But me specifically, Bite is what it's called, by the way. Yeah, decreases their defense by 15%. Solid. So they'll take more damage. Absolutely lovely. Crazy even. But yeah, but also when Chi-Chi does this and when we start detonating the thing, that is elemental damage, but the extra elemental effect damage or elemental decrease resistance on enemies, that is going to make super conduct hit even harder. So this actually benefits Chi-Chi quite a bit as well, because she's all about freezing people and shit, as well as just healing you quite a bit. Now again, the same thing could be said for Bennett with Overload. We could just constantly apply Overload and Overload and Overload, which could be pretty awesome too, especially if you're in his field. Actually, I don't think that's quite the same, because the thing that Bennett Bennett makes up for it with the insane damage buff that you get, but it's a little bit different when it comes to he can't apply fire too often, it seems. But that's why I kind of like Chi-Chi. But again, Chi-Chi's a weird one because Chi-Chi's a good healer, but again, I think Bennett would offset the elemental reaction with his insane damage of his attack, basically feeding into Razor's. But the one thing that doesn't really sit well with me with Bennett a little bit is that he has a very small radius. And with Razor, he basically pushes enemies back, so you have to reposition and get behind enemies and keep them in this like radius. And luckily with Zhongli and what's his name, what do you call it? You can get quite a bit of like distance with that if you really space them out properly, and then you can easily course correct, get a couple hits in, and then when they start getting over to the edge, then you just push them back in, and that's pretty chill. But with with Bennett's ult is like the size of Zhongli's pillar. It's like this tiny little radius, like maybe here. So if an enemy exits that, or you happen to exit that, then you're like, fuck, I'm stuck. I gotta try to get this dude back in the thing, and you waste time not healing by trying to get the damage buff and all that weird shit. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like Chi-Chi in this instance, with the way Razor plays, would be a lot better. But that's just my crazy brain thinking. But yes, the fact that we're getting even more Zhongli buffs is just fucking nutty. And the worst part about it, and I don't know, part of me is like, yeah, I agree with people who are saying that the banner should be back. Because people are like, what the fuck? You buffed this character like a significant amount to where he's not even like he was, but now we can't get him. And a part of me is like, yeah, I feel you, but at the same time, I feel like that's kind of the win. That's the win of the people who are like, you know what? I'll make him work. I think he looks dope as she's wearing this fucking badass suit. Love it. Also, I just think I thought he was pretty good even regardless of the buffs. You know, I thought he was fine. Like, and it wasn't like, where the fuck? Like a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know. I just think part of me is just like, you know, I kind of think this is a nice like pat on the back for people who are like, you know what? I have faith. I'll make him work. And then Mahoyo's like, well, hey, we got you. You believed in us, we'll believe in you. And it's so stupid to say, because they're a company that wants to make money, but still, it's just nutty. I can't believe that. Also, I feel like him being at Constellation 1 is a little annoying. Like, it kind of staggers out his build a little bit, because you have to do this, wait a little bit, or switch to characters, maybe activate some abilities, then come back, and then do this, and then you'll get after patch, you'll get 2 lapises dropped. A stone lapis is dropped, which to me, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it slows down the flow of combat a little bit, so I'm actually happy that I only have the 1. That way I don't have to be like, oh, I'm not being efficient. I can just be like, pop, switch to another character and start fucking things up. Drop this, etc. But yeah, guys, I am just over the moon. I think this is so cool. Again, it's weirdly, fucking freakishly weirdly, like perfect for my setup and even my old setup. So I definitely gotta get that video up where we build Zhongli for HP just so you guys can see what the hell's going on. But that build would be even more applicable now because having his shield constantly up and never breaking is huge because it decreases every all the damage that enemies take. Not only that, but this makes him great in co-op as well. Not only the fact that they can just drop a bomb on top of enemies and just shit on them, but also the fact that he's just making everyone weaker. So if you have a Duluth that's fucking popping off, if you have any other, like a Bennett popping off, all that's going to just be more damage that enemies are taking, making him really, really valuable, making him a Geo character, a support more or less, rather than him just being kind of, he was weirdly, now that I think about it, a selfish like support, like, you know what I mean? He didn't really give his teammates too many things besides a lot of resistance, which is good, but not like Albedo, who basically just increases your damage like a crazy amount, and lets you constantly feed energy, which I know some people are like, his energy regen is not that good. It is good, it's just a little random. It's not like, you have a 60% chance to gain a shit ton of crystals, or you don't. That's why you notice his ult come back so fast, and it sometimes doesn't. That's why you also build things for recharge, just because if you want to spam ults, you gotta have recharge. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm rambling at this point, but absolutely massive. To me, I'm like, 1.3, man. It's gonna be a whole new beast. It's gonna be a whole mess of damage. Round things up, Albedo feeds perfectly into Zhongli. Zhongli feeds perfectly into Albedo. Also, Albedo feeds perfectly into everybody, but also Zhongli feeds perfectly into Razor, and Razor, Chi-Chi helps Razor constantly activate Superconduct, as well as heals the entire team. as well as does elemental damage constantly. So that means that the elemental resistance and the physical resistance are going to be benefiting our boy Razor constantly, which is also why I'm building Albedo to have Noblesse Oblige, which means whenever he activates his ult, which happens consistently, he'll get 25% more attack, and it'll just feed right back into Razor. And I don't know how I'm building Chi-Chi yet. Probably just cryo damage, and I'll forget about some and a little bit of healing. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, love you. Appreciate you so much. For those of you guys who got Zhongli day 1, didn't even wait till there was maybe a patch, didn't like the last raise, quickly scrounge some quarters and shit and throw it at your monitor to try to get him, and you got him. Well, now for the people who are the OG, the people who stood with it, benefit, mad benefit. Solid. Absolutely massive. Again, if you didn't like him at his worst, you'll sure as hell be happy when you have him at his best. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Hope you guys do enjoy the rest of your day. Subscribe button's over there, as well as 2 videos further that way. Thank you once again, and goodbye.